obviously. Right, but anyway, let's start the event. Welcome to the storytelling event. Yeah, I think so. Welcome to the storytelling event. I'm really happy to see everyone here. And today's event will be dedicated to the Dark Lore, or the Long Night of Middle-earth. Before we recite our stories, I would like to say a few words about us as an introduction, so that the newcomers get a better idea of what the club's about. The original Inklings were a literary group that included Tolkien and his friends. This was a group of people who really enjoyed reading and writing fantasy. The most famous members were Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, and also Lewis, who wrote Chronicles of Narnia. These two people seem to be the nucleus of the group, but they also invited like-minded spirits for these informal meetings. The purpose of this group was to read unfinished tales. The Inklings would meet twice a week, either at Lewis's apartment or in a local pub called Eagle and the Child. Between them, they nicknamed the pub the Bird and the Baby. Incidentally, you can find a pub with that name in the Shire, in Michael Delving. During their meetings, they read their works to each other and discussed them. Tolkien would bring passages from Lord of the Rings to read there. He received a lot of support and help from his friends, who encouraged him to keep writing his work. The name Inklings itself was a pun on the writers, who dabble in ink, but may only have an idea of what they tend to write about. Tolkien really enjoyed these meetings. In one of his letters, he called them a feast of reason and a flow of soul, which is a very poetical way to put it, and which is exactly what we're trying to recreate with our meetings here. I would like to sum up with a quote. "Stories are lies, but great stories are truth disguised as lies." And to our meetings we bring stories, mainly those that are set in Middle-earth. We believe that a story is more than just a combination of words and events. Great stories speak to us on a deeper level, which is why we humans have been reciting them from the dawn of time until now. Today we are meeting here in the old forest. This place is more ancient than you might think. This is one of the small remnants of gigantic forests that once covered Middle-earth. The long night of Middle-earth is that long period of time before the sun and the moon were created. Today you will learn why the long night happened, why it descended upon the world, and how eventually sun rose. So let us start our meeting. And the first story is Awakening of the Elves. And the first story is Awakening of the Elves and the rising of the first constellations. Oh no, it's actually... Wait a second. How Middle-earth descended into the dark. Sorry, that was my mic. How Middle-earth descended into the dark. When the world was young, it didn't look anything like what you see around you. It was full of wonder, beauty, and joy. Let me tell you about the spring of Arda, when it was lit by two enormous lamps, and how subsequently the world was plunged in darkness. The Valar were powerful spirits. The world of Middle-earth had been created by their powerful song, and the Valar then descended to live in it. They shaped the world, making all lands and seas symmetrical. And they needed to have light. Aule the craftsman crafted 2 great lamps. Then Varda, Queen of the Stars, filled the lamps with hollowed fire. The Valar put these 2 lamps upon high pillars, which were the tallest things to ever exist in the world. One lamp shone with blue light, and it stood at the northern border of Middle-earth. It was called Iluin. The other lamp shone with golden light, and it stood at the southern border of Middle-earth. It was called Ormol. Night didn't exist in the world at that time yet, because the lamps illuminated the world at all times. In their blessed light, living things started to come to life. Mosses and grasses and grey ferns. Gigantic trees, tall as mountains, grew in Middle-earth at that time. Enormous forests covered the continent. The old forest where we now are is but a small remnant of these forests. The fairest place was at the center of the earth. There lay a great lake. And in the middle there was the home of the Valar, the first home, which was called the Isle of Almarin. It was a large green island in the center of the lake. There Manwë, the king of the Valar, made a great feast for his brothers and sisters. However, at that feast Tulkas, the mightiest Valar, espoused Nessa, the merriest Valar. However, the dark enemy of the world, Melkor, broke the pillars that were supporting the lamps, and flames spilled over the earth. Lands were broken and seas arose. The perfect symmetry of the world was ruined forever, and the light was extinguished. Almarin, the home of the Valar, was destroyed. The powerful spirits moved to the island of Aman, which lay in the western ocean of Belegar. They forsook the dark lands of Middle-earth, and thus the long night began. This is the end of this story. And now I'm pleased to welcome, just in a minute or so, Teldar, it is your turn.
Yep. Stage is a little funky.
It is, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, this'll do, I suppose.
Yeah, it's too much of a trouble to try to get up there.
Okay. Well, whenever you're ready, I'll begin.
Just go ahead.
Okay. In the beginning, there was Eru Ilúvatar, who had created all of existence. He created the Vala, who helped to build the realm of Arda. One such Vala was Aule the smith, who was fond of crafting and creation. Eru Ilúvatar, in time, created the elves and men of Middle-earth. To Aule's surprise, Ilúvatar chose to spare the dwarves and allow them to exist in Middle-earth. The eldest of these new beings was Durin I. Aule had created 13 dwarves in all, one mate for each, except for Durin. Durin and his kin were put into a deep slumber and hidden across Middle-earth until the Elves awoke. After the awakening of the Elves, Durin had awoken alone beneath Mount Gundabad. When he had awoken, Durin traveled south along the eastern side of the Misty Mountains. In his travel, Durin named the nameless hills and dells and drank from yet untasted wells. His path eventually led him to Lake Miramir, or Kheled Zaram, in Kuzdul. It was here that Durin gazed into the water and saw a crown of 7 stars above his head. The 7 stars were the Valasirka, which had been created by Varda, the Vala, as a challenge to Morgoth. Durin took this as a sign and chose to build a home in the caves near Kheled Zaram. As time went on, more of Durin's kin arrived from dwarf lands to the west and to the east. Durin later married from one of the other kingdoms and founded his own folk, the Longbeards. The Longbeards founded the halls of Khazad-dûm, the greatest realm in all of the dwarven kingdoms. Durin's rule would lead his folk through a time of great peace and prosperity. He lived for over 2,000 years and died peacefully in the halls of Khazad-dûm. This was not the end for Durin, however, for the dwarven kings are special. The 7 dwarven kings are destined to return to Arda when their people need them the most. Durin I was entombed in Khazad-dûm, but his people eagerly awaited his return. His first lifetime brought glory to his people, and he would continue to do so in each lifetime. During his 7th lifetime, Durin and his folk reclaimed many of the lost lands of the Longbeards. The Longbeards eventually reclaimed Khazad-dûm, and Durin led his people in peace until they all faded from history. That is the end of my tale.
Great job. Very enjoyable.
Thank you.
I really like the story of Miramir. Such a magical place.
Oh yeah.
And in a minute or so, feel free to start your second story.
I can begin immediately if that's okay.
Let's maybe give some people like a minute for fireworks and stuff. I'll distribute some fireworks and then we can and then you can recite the next one.
Very well. Yeah, the next one's my favorite.
The Son of Durin, yeah. I remember how they described Miramir in the book, like it was a big lake, and it didn't reflect the sky. Is that right?
Yeah, it sounds about right, because it has been described as dark and windless, so it sounds about right. I haven't had a chance to actually read it in the books yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember you just go to the books and you were gonna read them.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a bit though, because I'm starting with the Silmarillion.
Yeah. But you will be going into the books as a true expert, already knowing everything, like all the lore and stuff.
I got surface level knowledge, so it's, it's definitely a start.
Okay, feel free to start whenever you're ready. Like a minute has passed, so.
Okay, I will begin the Song of Durin then. This one shouldn't take too long.
Okay, sounds good.
The world was young, the mountains green. No stain yet on the moon was seen. No words were laid on stream or stone. When Durin woke and walked alone, he named the nameless hills and dells. He drank from yet untasted wells. He stooped and looked in Miramir, and saw a crown of stars appear. Above the shadow of his head, as gems upon a silver thread, above the shadows of his head. The world was fair, the mountains tall, in elder days before the fall of mighty kings in Nargothrond, and Gondolin who now beyond. The western seas have passed away, the world was fair in Durin's day. A king he was on carven throne, in many pillared halls of stone, with golden roof and silver floor, and runes of power upon the door. The light of sun and star and moon, in shining lamps of crystal hewn, undimmed by cloud or shade of night, there shone forever fair and bright. Their hammer on the anvil smote, their chisel clove and graver wrote, their forge was blade and bound was hilt, the delver mind the mason built. Their beryl, pearl, and opal pale, and metal wrought like fish's mail. Buckler and corselet, axe and sword, and shining spears were laid in hoard. Unwearied then were Durin's folk, beneath the mountains music woke. The harpers harped, the minstrels sang, and at the gates the trumpets rang. The world is grey, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. The shadow lies upon his tomb, in Moria, in Khazad-dûm. But still the sunken stars appear, in dark and windless Miramir. There lies his crown in water deep, till Durin wakes again from sleep. This concludes the song.
Yeah, very well done. I remember this is the song that you sent by a Scottish singer, which I liked very much.
Yep, messed up a little bit towards the beginning, but oh well.
Yeah, that happens. It's all good. Yeah, that's a great poem. The beginning of the dwarf race is so like we don't know too much about it, and it seems quite magical to me.
Oh yeah. I also love that there's actually recordings of John Rhys Davis actually reading the Song of Durin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
It is. I guess my favorite interpretation is the song that you sent to me. I didn't realize immediately that it was the Song of Durin, but I really liked it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Same for me. That's a really cool soundtrack, one of my favorites. Don't worry, Lumendal, I know that you've had this issue before the game, so let's just play and it's all about the fun, so don't worry about it. Taldor, can I ask you to distribute some more fireworks for those who just came? Just maybe 2 or 3 each to each person. Well, 2, 3, 4. And we can continue the event, I suppose. Let me just climb. Oh, I did it. So our next story is going to be a long one. It's going to be about the awakening of the elves and the first constellations. So darkened Middle-earth lay in a twilight under the stars. The great lamps had been destroyed, and the sun and the moon had not yet been created. But the oldest living things had already arisen. Great weeds in the seas, shadows of great trees. In the valleys there roamed dark creatures, old and strong. Forests were put into deep sleep, awaiting the first rising of the sun. In darkness they were haunted by the shapes of dread. The Valar had forsaken Middle-earth. They now dwelled in Aman. The great sea of Beligar now lay between them and the continent. Yavanna, the Earth Mother, deeply grieved for Middle-earth. Those lands and forests that the Valar seldom came to now, save only Yavanna and Orome their hunter. Yavanna would work Middle-earth alone in the shadows. She grieved the lost growth and promise of the spring of Varda. Yavanna set a deep sleep upon her forests, so they should not age. But she knew not if there should ever come a time of their awakening. She also grieved for the children of Iluvatar, elves and men, who were destined to come to life in the darkness. Yavanna's sister was Varda, the kindler of the skies. Varda took the silver dews from the tree of Telperion, and she fashioned bright stars out of them. Thus rose many constellations. Many of the ancient stars she gathered together and set as signs in the heavens of Varda. Wolverine, Lumendal, Saronome, and Anarima, and Menelcamir with his shining belt, that forebodes the last battle that shall be at the end of days. High in the north she set the crown of 7 mighty stars. It was called Valasirka, the circle of the Valar. As Varda ended her labors, Menelmacar strode up in the sky for the first time, and the blue fire of Halloween flickered in the mists above the borders of the world. In that hour, the elves awoke by the starlit mere of Cuivenin, which means water of awakening, an ancient lake in the northeastern region of Middle-earth. Their eyes beheld, first of all things, the stars of heaven. Therefore, they have ever loved the starlight, and have revered Varda Elantari above all the Valar. And the first sound that the elves heard was the sound of water. Melkor, the enemy of the world, found out about the coming of elves before the Valar did. The most ancient songs of the elves tell of the shadow shapes in the hills above Cuivenin. The elves sang about a dark hunter or a black rider. And those elves who strayed too far from red dwelling at Cuivenin disappeared. The dark and slumbering woods were haunted by shapes of dread. A few words need to be said about Melkor here. He was considered to be the Dark Lord of Varda. His name means he who arises in might. But the Noldor elves gave him the name of Morgoth, the dark enemy of the world. Great might was given to him by Iluvatar, and he was Manwë's older brother. In the powers and knowledge of all the other Valar he had part, but he turned them to evil purposes. So great was the power of his uprising that in ages forgotten he waged wars against the Valar, and through long years he held dominion over Arda. He was not alone. In the north, Malkor had built his stronghold of Utumno. In its walls he bred evil things. Many lesser spirits of Maya were drawn to his splendor in the days of his greatness. In Utumno, Malkor gathered his demons about him. Those spirits who first adhered to him in the days of his splendor were the Balrogs. They became most like him in his corruption. Their hearts were of fire, but they were cloaked in darkness, and terror went before them. They had whips of flame. They were known as the Valarkar, the scourges of fire, called the Balrogs, demons of terror. His greatest servant was the spirit called Sauron, Ogorthar the Cruel. Fearing for the fate of the elves, the Valar waged a great war of powers against Melkor. They besieged his northern fortress and took him captive. However, the Valar did not search all the underground walls and caverns of Utumno. Many evil things remained there. Others dispersed and fled into the dark, awaiting their hour. It was only after their victory that the Valar summoned the elves to live in Aman. Not all of the elves made their way to the Blessed Realm. Many remained in Middle-earth. They became known as Avari, the Unwilling, and were counted among the Elves of Darkness. That means that they had never seen the holy light of Aman, which predated the sun and moon. These elves were sundered from the rest of their kindred for many ages. It was rumored that the Avari might have become savage and wild in the dark. Nandor, the returning elves, are also considered as the Elves of Darkness. They loved water and dwelled most beside falls and running streams. Greater knowledge they had of living things, tree and herb, bird and beast, than all other elves. So this is the end of the story.
Looks like Olberry came to enjoy this story as well.
Indeed. Lumendal is a fan of Balrogs. Lumendal, did you know that technically the sun is like the sun is also a Balrog, but just an uncorrupted Balrog, because the Balrogs were spirits of fire.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that one.
I need to step away for a second. Alright. We now can move on to the next story. The next story is a piece that I myself have written, and it is what I imagine would this is basically a story which I try to imagine what would happen if Melkor got a chance to talk to Aule, because they are often compared in the Silmarillion, like both crafters in different ways. So this is my attempt to write a story about them. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was afraid maybe I was muted. So,
No, you're good.
I am starting the story. The story is called Forging of Angainor. Aule worked hard in his secret underground smithy. He hadn't rested for days. His muscles ached. The hand in which he held his hammer almost felt numb. The heat from the forge was scorching him, and large beads of sweat rolled down his skin. He didn't dare take even an hour of rest. Earlier, Manwë had requested that Aule should craft as an item of the utmost importance. This labor was to be held in secret. But secrecy wasn't the only reason why the smith labored so hard underground, hidden from everyone's sight. For a while now, Aule had been tormented by a taunting voice in his head. The voice belonged to Melkor, the enemy of all living things. No matter how strongly Aule despised this voice, he couldn't fully drive it away. The sound of his hammer hitting the anvil was the only thing that could temporarily drown it. This is why Aule toiled restlessly in his underground smithy. Me and you, we're the same, Melkor's mocking voice said in his head. That's a lie, Aule thought. His hammer hit the anvil with more force than usual. I'm nothing like you, Aule thought fervently. I make new and whole and good things. You bring only death and destruction. But don't you bring death and destruction as well? Melkor taunted him. How many of your students' works will start great wars? My students' works are fair and useful, Aule replied. We're not responsible for the greed that these works inspire in the hearts of others. But they bring evil into the world nonetheless, Melkor replied. So how are you different from me? Aule gritted his teeth and hit the anvil so hard that sparks flew everywhere before vanishing in a blink of an eye. The blacksmith tried to concentrate on his work, but Melkor's voice kept taunting him inside his head. The Valar are merely pawns, his nasty voice said. You are all just puppets on Eru's strings. We are high beings of dignity and free will, Aule replied. You are fools if you cannot see through Eru's tricks, Melkor growled. And you are a coward, Aule. How come I'm a coward? Aule replied indignantly. Because you do everything that your master tells you to do. Eru isn't my master, he is my father, worthy of eternal praise. What creator would so willingly try to destroy his own sentient creation, having received one angry look from his father? Melkor asked. Large beads of sweat were rolling down Owl's skin. "You do not have free will," Melkor said. "None of us have the freedom of creativity, except Eru." "You are a liar," Owl replied. "Eru is our bountiful and merciful father. He gave us freedom and the power of creation. But all good creations are based on Eru's vision," the voice taunted him. "What creative freedom is left to the rest of us?" Aule straightened up and put his hammer away. His work was almost ready. Soon afterwards, the Valar besieged the fortress of Utumno. Its gates were broken, and the halls unroofed. Melkor took refuge in the utmost pit. When Tulkas stood forth as the champion of the Valar, he wrestled him and cast him upon his face. And Melkor was bound with the chain Angainor that Aule had wrought, and led captive. And the world had peace for a long age. This is the end of the story. Alright, the next story is going to be a creative one as well. I mean a fictional one as well. It's going to be a story written by Noldorin. Alright, I'm going to be starting with our next story. Can you still hear me well, Telder?
I can hear you.
Okay. Let me just find, where is it? Oh, here it is, finally. Our next story. A Rescue in the Night by Noldorin. Now let us hear the next story. An Adventure of Calendar, the Last Night of the Ancient Cross. This story takes place long after the long night was over. It tells us about what happened to Knight Calendar one night during his travels through the land of Rohan. The story was written by Noldorin. That night, Calendar was nearing sleep when he heard a lament. A woman was weeping over a missing son. The boy was the grandson of a general of Rohan. He had last been seen approaching the entrance to the Baths of the Dead, where Aragorn and the Grey Company had passed only a few days before. It seemed the boy had deemed the trail safe and resolved to venture forth. He must have felt bold enough to tread where many valiant warriors would refuse to go. Sandmen spoke of searching at first light, but Calendar knew that the boy might not survive until dawn. He knew not what perils could dwell there, yet he felt in his heart that he must act. Taking his sword, he drew his hood over his head and vanished silently into the dark of the night. The closer he drew to the door at the foot of the fountain, the colder the air seemed to grow. A certain malice hung in the atmosphere, and as he took his first step into the path, this sensation deepened. He walked for several minutes, or so it seemed to him, seeing very little as he pressed forward. Finally, he started to discern a pale cold glimmer emanating from within that bleak place. He emerged into a wider stretch of the path. Ruined structures in the distance loomed. Sorry. They emanated a dead, heavy, and lusterless light. Calendar knew not exactly where to search, but he followed his heart. He walked a little further, nearing what appeared to be a ruined guard post. There he caught sight of the youth, curled in a corner. His head was buried between his legs, and his arms wrapped tightly around his knees. Approaching softly, Calendar realized that the boy was weeping. Hearing footsteps, the lad snapped his head up in terror. He seemed to doubt whether what he saw was real. Calendar lowered himself gently onto one knee and spoke. "May peace be upon your heart, son of Rohan. I have come to your aid." The boy then swooned, and Calendar swiftly caught him in his arms. His face was stained with dust and tears, yet he was unharmed. Cradling him against his chest, Calendar rose to depart. But then he felt something watching him from the gloom. He turned sharply towards the shadows, his senses heightened to their utmost. But he saw nothing save the fleeting impression of a mournful, pale and cold blue spectre. He then turned to leave that place of ill omen behind. Calendar's feat was celebrated with profound and heartfelt gratitude. Just as the day began to show signs of breaking, Calendar was readying his horse to depart. The youth approached him, still clad in his sleep garb and bearing the weary look. "Thank you, Lord, for rescuing me. I hope one day to be a warrior like you, without fear," the boy said. Calendar smiled, and lowering himself once more to one knee, he spoke. He rested a hand upon the youth's shoulder and asked, "And who told you that I was not afraid?" "But you are a brave lord. You went in there to find me, and I felt fear every step of the way. To feel fear is not a weakness. Fear keeps us alert, focused, and vigilant. Fear is the reminder of what we stand to lose and what we fight for. All the great warriors of the tales felt fear, yet they acted with courage. To feel fear is no disgrace. True evil is cowardice, and I know your heart is brave." He pressed his hand gently over the boy's chest, and the youth offered a timid smile. "Now go and rest. Sleep in peace, knowing that you are protected, and far from the perils of the world. The boy yawned and walked back towards his tent, while Calendar watched him. Soon after, the guardian mounted his steed and rode slowly away, heading once more towards the open path. This is the end of this adventure. You've just heard one segment of Calendar's story. For those who wish to read it again, Noldorin has uploaded it to the server. And we hope to hear about his next adventures soon. What do you think of Noldorin's story?
I thought it was pretty good. I think it's got some pretty good messages in it too, on courage and whatnot.
I think so too.
Oh yeah.
And also I think it's really nice to I think it is also really nice to get more stories of knights who and Rohan people, because we don't read too much about like the life of ordinary knights in the canon.
Yep, I agree. I do like the Rohirrim.
So do I. And I respect the Gondorans. I hope you do, because Noldorin has such a deep Gandalf voice. So, it will be amazing. Like, Noldorin's voice is literally Gandalf's voice. There is a hobbit hiding in the balcony. Right, if nobody has any feedback to share, I will just go ahead and start our next tale. Story.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. Yeah, just a second. Okay. The story of Tom Bombadil. The Hobbit is eating. Do you see the Hobbit above your head? That's hilarious. The story of Tom Bombadil, eldest and fatherless. At this event, we cannot avoid talking about Tom Bombadil, who was kind enough to let us gather today at his outdoor furnace. Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow. He wears a yellow jacket and blue boots. Tom lives in the old forest with his wife, the spirit of the river. But Tom isn't just some old man. This person is powerful and fearless, unafraid of the Barrow Wights or the Black Riders. And even the old man Willow obeys Tom's voice. Tom is eldest and fatherless. This is what he tells Frodo about himself. He was here before the river and the trees. He remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He made paths before the big people, and saw the little people arriving. He was here before the kings, and the Graves and the Barrow Wights. When the Elves passed westward, Tom was here already, before the seas were sundered. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside. Being the eldest, Tom witnessed the long night of Middle-earth with his own eyes. For 1,495 valiant years he lived in the dark. That counts for about 14,325 solar years. Yet he was unafraid of any dark foe. His spirit is indomitable, and his powerful voice can break enchantments. We don't know where or how Tom Bombadil came into Middle-earth. But one day he ventured into the old forest for the first time. The natural spirits of the forests tried to capture him. One of these spirits, Goldberry, was particularly mischievous. She pulled Tom by his beard into the river of Lumendal. She didn't want to harm him, but rather to laugh at him. However, as we know, Tom had a powerful voice. He could undo enchantments and command the spirits to return to peaceful existence. So he freed himself from the river. The next day he came to Lumendal again and asked Goldberry to be his wife. And the creatures of the old forest attended their wedding. And they have lived here in perfect harmony ever since. They aren't afraid of undead wights or dark forest creatures. You can often see Tom gathering lilies for his wife. It is a blessing for every traveler to come to the doorstep of Tom Bombadil's house. And this is the end of this story. Please share your thoughts, if you wish. And we only have one more story left. Okay, let us start with our final story for today. The final story is going to be the creation of Sun and Moon. This will be our final story for today. We already know a lot about how the long night of Middle-earth started. Now it is time to talk about the dawn. How the sun rose for the first time and drove away the darkness. It would be wrong to say that all Arda was dark during the long night. There was one region full of light. That was Valinor, the distant holy realm of the Valar, which is hidden from the mortal eyes. Valinor is a part of Aman, an island in the western sea of Beligire. In Valinor, Yavanna grew 2 great trees that produced the light of 100 suns. This was the sacred light predating the sun. No mortal eyes ever beheld that light. But not all of Aman was illuminated by the trees. The island was divided into 2 parts by Pelori mountain range. One part of Aman was filled with brilliant light, but the region on the opposite side was plunged in total darkness. In that darkness there lived Ungoliant, an ancient monstrous being. She feared the light and craved it at the same time. Ungoliant was truly insatiable, like a void. One day, Dark Lord Melkor summoned her from the shadows. He led her across the mountain range into Valinor. There, Ungoliant devoured the trees. So the great darkness fell upon Valinor. No song or tale could contain all the grief and terror that then befell. The light failed, but the darkness that followed was much more than the loss of light. In that hour was made a darkness that seemed not like but a thing with being of its own. It had power to pierce the eye, and to enter heart and mind, and strangle the very will. Having committed the heinous deed, Ungoliant fled. The Valar and the High Elves gathered around the corpses of the trees to mourn them. Valar Nienna shed her tears, cleansing the trees from Ungoliant's influence. Yavanna and Nienna put forth all their powers of growth and healing. They couldn't revive the trees, but their efforts weren't in vain. Before dying, the golden tree of Lorelin produced one last fruit, and the silver tree of Telperion produced one last flower. Aule made vessels to hold them and preserve their radiance, and Varda gave them power to traverse the sky. The Valar chose among the Maiar a maiden to guide the vessel of the sun. She was named Arian. In the days of the trees, Arian had tended the golden flowers in the garden of Bana, and watered them with the bright dews of Lorelin. Arian was chosen because she hadn't feared the heats of Lorelin, and she was unhurt by them. She was Spirit of Fire, whom Melkor had not deceived nor drawn to his service. The Maya who would steer the island of the moon was Tilian. This was a hunter of the company of Orome, and he had a silver bow. Too bright were the eyes of Arian for even the elder to look on, and living in Valinor, she forsook her old form and raiment. From now on, she was as a naked flame, terrible in the fullness of her splendor. Tilian was the first to ascend into the sky. In his silver light, Yavanna's forest stirred and started to come to life. After several days, Arian arose in glory. The clouds of Middle-earth were kindled, and Morgoth was dismayed. He descended into the uttermost depths of Angmund, and withdrew his servants too. And when the sun rose for the first time, the younger children of Luvatar, known as men, came to life. So this is the end of our stories for today. Let me know your feedback. Our next event will be on the 8th of August, and it will be dedicated to the lore of the Dunedain. I'll be posting info on our Discord. And as a side note, there is a game of hide and seek tomorrow, so let's pose for a screenshot. That's a new thing that I decided I'd like doing. Because it has like one big screenshot where everyone can be at the same time, so technically you can have one screenshot for...
Good thing my character's short.
Is there a sunspot, right? Okay.